When we think about DOK, Carl Webb's work in the area of leveling questions and assessments and tasks, we really want to explore what the levels mean and why we have them. If Webb's DOK was just another way of organizing Bloom's verbs, then why would we have it? And I've worked with a wheel that shows me the relationship between verbs and the DOK levels. And that wheel can be very helpful initially. It's a way to connect Carl Webb's DOK to prior knowledge about Bloom's verbs. But the truth is, they're not that easily aligned. DOK, or depth of knowledge, is not just another way to organize Bloom's verbs. Well, what do I mean? I mean that I can have you list something that's very simple. So the verb list could be DOK1 or recall. But I could also ask you to list incredibly complex things. And so the verb list doesn't automatically put me at DOK1. It might in fact be DOK3, strategic thinking. So I struggled with this initially, and so I turned to a good friend of mine, Karen Hess, and I asked her to help me really understand the levels of DOK1, recall, 2, basic skill, 3, strategic thinking, and 4, extended thinking. And I asked her to help me get better at identifying how my assessments actually connect to DOK levels. And she shared with me the chocolate chip cookie unit, and I'd like to share that with you now. She started off saying, I have a chocolate chip cookie unit. And so rather than think about my skills, which would really be Bloom's taxonomy, I want to think about my questions. And by thinking about my questions and my tasks, that's going to help me identify the DOK level of what I have going on. And that's what Webb was designing it for. So she said, what kind of questions would you be asking to find out if the children can recall the basic information about a chocolate chip cookie? Well, I said, okay, well, what does a chocolate chip cookie taste like? And that would be describe a chocolate chip cookie. Or what does a chocolate chip cookie look like? So that might be describe the shape and the colors. I might say something about who eats chocolate chip cookies. Why do we eat chocolate chip cookies? This is all information that would say, can I recall the basic information about what a chocolate chip cookie is and why they exist? So that's DOK level 1, basic recall. She said, that's good. Now let's think about DOK level 2. DOK level 2 is looking for a basic skill. What is a skill a child would do with a chocolate chip cookie? Well, you could bake a chocolate chip cookie, or you could sell a chocolate chip cookie. Just as 2 examples. What kind of questions would we be asking for DOK level 2? How do I bake a chocolate chip cookie that tastes like a chocolate chip cookie? How do I follow a recipe? What are the ingredients that I need to think about for a chocolate chip cookie? This would all be tasks or assessments that would be connected with a DOK2 level, basic implementation of the skill. So now we go to DOK level 3. This is where whatever you did at DOK level 2, you'll mess with it. So now the questions are, how do you bake a chocolate chip cookie at a higher altitude? How would you bake a chocolate chip cookie, but you're missing a key ingredient? So now the child must think about substitution. I'd like you to bake a chocolate chip cookie, but your oven broke. So now we have problem solving, creative thinking. In fact, all of the highest levels of Bloom's taxonomy could be found in DOK3 assessments. So if I were to draw DOK, it would actually look like a box and have 3 boxes on the one side representing level 1, 2, and 3, and 3 being the highest level of Bloom's. And then 4 would be a rectangle off to the side. And the reason that we have that is we want to make it clear that DOK level 4 does not mean harder. I know, it's misleading. It's a linear sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4. Logic would say the 4 was the hardest. So what we really want to show here with this graphic is that 4 is an extension. It's extended thinking. which means at any level of Webb's DOK, I can go sideways. And that would be the extended thinking, or what we would be looking for transfer, which is why Webb created the DOK. So back in our chocolate chip cookie unit, where we had 1, 2, and 3 strategic thinking being all that creative work, doubling recipes, halving recipes, how would we go sideways? So let's do the first one. DOK 4, messing with DOK 1. Our original concept was the chocolate chip cookie. So how do we go sideways? I could say to the students, how would you design a better cookie? What if I have some students who absolutely didn't like chocolate chip cookies the whole time? It could happen. And if they don't like the chocolate chip cookies the whole time, they've been sitting here struggling. But we would say design a healthier cookie. Now we have kale cookies going on. All right, so we left the concept chocolate chip cookie and we're moving into other spaces. It's transfer of knowledge, it's extended thinking. It can also be personalized learning because now the children can take it in their own direction. And last but not least, this is why we say DOK 4 is an entry point. Some children will engage with DOK levels 1, 2, and 3 and sit through the chocolate chip cookie work just because you said they were going to get to design their own cookie. You might have some aspiring Mrs. Fields options where they're sitting there saying, I want to design a really good cookie. I'm going to study in context all this material, level 1, 2, and 3, so that I can do this effectively. So DOK 4 can be an entry point for learning. DOK 4, messing with DOK 2. Well, when last our heroes met, they were actually baking chocolate chip cookies. That was the skill. So how can I extend that skill? Well, what are other things we can bake? The in-context work was baking cookies. So if a child extends it and transfers the knowledge and says, well, I can bake a cake, I can bake brownies, I can bake a casserole, I can bake a turkey. In this way, students are transferring their ability to follow a recipe and actually bake something to a completely different ingredient set. That's transfer of knowledge, extended thinking. DOK 4, messing with DOK 3. All right, so in context, they were baking cookies at a higher altitude or doubling recipes or doing substitution of ingredients. The students now can take the baking of a cake and doing substitution, or the baking of that casserole and doing it at a higher altitude. Again, all that critical thinking or analysis or synthesis or problem solving that they applied in context is just taken into any other context. And that's how you're going to maximize your DOK levels. So once again, it becomes clear that DOK 4 not only is an entry point, but it's a way to make that differentiation work for you. So in a classroom, I might have some students doing DOK 1, DOK 4, and other children doing a DOK 3, DOK 4. That kind of range allowed DOK to make our questioning techniques and our assessments and tasks provide evidence that helped us improve student learning. Bloom's taxonomy is focused on making sure our skills have that range.